Well, good afternoon, Scott Baker. I think I owe you an apology
Proceed.
because
I'm
I didn't
interested.
realize when I asked you if we could delay this by 2 hours from what our normal time is, that I was asking you to put off watching the finals of the CrossFit Games, which I know
As-
you're deeply into.
Oh, and I will. Yeah, this is live on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So things have
Five
resolved.
o'clock,
I'm
right?
sure. I have not actually looked to see the winners. Now
Okay.
I've watched the rest of the weekend. So shortly after this, I will resume. Actually, my wife is more passionate about watching them. But thank you for your sensitivity.
Right. No, the host of the house that we're staying in this
Ah,
weekend is an avid CrossFit watcher,
great,
and so
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah. So, but that's not the subject of today's
No,
field note, obviously, or
although
today's
although it
conversation.
Yeah, although there is a tie-in because the field note title today, and thank you, by the way, for everybody joining us here for Lead Better, where we discuss the field note of the day from Admired Leadership. And the field note is entitled Peer Groups and the Search for Fresh Ideas. So peer groups, and we're all familiar from our earliest play dates that who do you get together with that shares your interests, passions, or actually expands your interests and passions? And that could be the sport you're into, it could be a political group, it could be an intellectual endeavor, an aesthetic endeavor, a religious endeavor. There's all kinds of ways that peer groups come together. They certainly there are lots of options in terms of corporate and organizational life, both outside the organizations and inside. So in all of that, this idea about fresh ideas is sort of positioned as a solution to total life dissatisfaction, which is a pretty high bar. And then I'm surprised in a way. We often get a lot of comments on our field notes. I thought we'd be getting a lot more heat around what the purpose of the peer group might be. And so we can talk about that because I think there's a part of it that seems to get short shrift as it elevates the idea element.
So, you think the idea of the peer group topic, that most of it should be neutral, or that it should be handled by a neutral party, or where
No,
did you
I'm
expect?
well. To me, and I think there's a lot to unpack here, by the way. And my warning for you, because I know you've been on a long road trip today, is this might take more than our 15 minutes. We usually
Okay.
try to keep these right at 15 minutes, but it's Sunday.
Right.
We have to monitor the discussion if
Right.
there's chat and all of that or questions that are being raised. So I think that normally when we think about getting together with peer groups, and sometimes those are random groups where we don't know who's going to be involved. Sometimes those are vetted peer groups and there's some selection around who's going to be in it. That there's a purpose around the discussion. And a big part of that, I think, for most people is they want to learn, they want to better themselves, and they assume that this will help them build relationships with people that have an ongoing connection to themselves. And it's just as much about the relationship as it is about the ideas and the practical insights generated, that they kind of go hand in hand. Now, I don't think that this field note is saying we're anti-relationship. Just go into the field note, suck everybody dry for their ideas, and then hit the highway.
Right.
I don't think it's saying that, but it's not really elevating the relationship part. So I thought maybe some people would look at this and say, that's why you're getting involved in peer groups, just so you can kind of get some new
Right.
ideas and that's where you're going to find your life satisfaction.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting though when you analyze why is it that people sign up for these peer groups, because we can look at some of them that have kind of popped on the scene in the last couple of years
Mm-hmm.
versus those that have been really going for the last couple of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like the ones that have been the most successful in the last couple of years are the ones where people have supposed access to people, and that this idea of access, right? And so you could call that relationship, but in a real
Mm-hmm.
way, it's like the people at the top are creating this sense of like you could maybe be in my peer group, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't actually think they're doing that intentionally. I just think it maybe they are, right? But it does feel like this notion of access is this third motivator besides the two that you just mentioned.
Well, I no, and a very good point as well. So
Right.
let's get to that, but let's
Mhm.
set up from the actual premise of the field note, which is starting off to say there are people who are high achievers. Um, that's probably just been their track record. They've been able
Right.
to hit whatever target they were trying to get to, or at least get well along the way to that. And maybe they've hit that place where they're like, is this it? Right? It's kind of, here's a good example. I don't have the quote in front of me, but maybe you remember it. I should have. We could have suggested it to play the clip. But Scotty Scheffler at the recent, I think was it in the UK, where he's like, you kind of get and you go like, is this it? Like, is there supposed to be something more that's is? And we often think that just means, oh, you've been prioritizing your work over your family, and sometimes that could be the case. But in the middle of all of that, it's like, well, what is the point of work if you get to a certain level of stature, you get to a certain level of income, a certain level of stability? And for some people, they actually go, I kind of like this. This is good. But other people are like, I was working this hard for this. And so the field note, in a way, is for the person who's kind of feeling that. And it's saying, you need to get sort of directly connected. You need to get your electric car charging from a new supply of ideas, the kind of things that got you excited about the field that you're in, and that's going to come very often in these kind of peer groups, and they're listed in there. And I do think that that's a part of why they're successful. But it is, as you said, there's an access element, and there's an actual, like, I actually like talking to people and I'd like to build a better network of people that I can help as much as learn from them.
Right. No, I like the way that you're bringing up Scotty Scheffler, because that's a recent clip that people can see. Those kinds of themes were also echoed in Chariots of Fire. There's a moment early on in the movie where you see the protagonist who is going to go on and win Olympic gold.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. But then,
but when he 50 years, so 40 years.
So, but early on, he notices someone else who is a world champion who's just won the race, and he looks depressed. He looks like down, right?
Yeah.
And someone briefly in the locker room, as he's trying to explain why it is that he's like, he doesn't know what to do next. He doesn't have and this idea of not having a purpose, and this, like, those people. And so it's mentioned in the field note that oftentimes, to the surprise of people around them, some of the most successful people are kind of depressed, are kind of empty, kind of have this notion to them. And especially if you're looking past the facade that might, obviously come by way of social media, or the way that a curated version of their image is coming from, that these people oftentimes just don't have it quite together in the same way that a more simple life would have. So it makes you feel like, okay, well, maybe I should be pursuing simplicity. Maybe I should be pursuing this parable of like living my retirement now. So is there a way for me to actually be successful and have ambition, but also be rewarded for it? Like have this reward in my soul and in my psyche that continues. So it's a deep question. It's one that we've been wrestling with for a long time, right?
Yeah, it's going to be all done after this edition of Lead Better. We're going to be like, we have solved it. It's completely solved. Just everybody can stop wrestling with this age-old question.
Yeah, we're definitely going to wrap it up. And by the way, we've got about 40 or 50 people watching us by way of
essentially a Sunday afternoon peer group. Yeah.
Right. And if you have comments or things that you want to put in the chat, feel free to do. We'll try to incorporate them as we see them. But the main source of our conversation will kind of be led by this field note. But this is the subject for the day, and we welcome your participation if you disagree or agree or however.
Well, okay, so a couple of things, and because I largely support the theme throughout the field note, and that's part of the fun of doing these daily conversations that we've been doing for years, and more recently emphasizing on the Substack platform, is that we can kind of take a perspective. How do we apply that? How do we think about it? And one of the things that is known through the literature and through study is that there's an element of it's not the goal that you get to that actually brings the most satisfaction. It's the pursuit of the goal. It doesn't actually mean we'll stop having goals. There are people out there who are like, it's just systems. If you just set up you just kind of do the things and you take what comes, and that's fine. And I know that there's an element, and I think, I don't think it's what Oliver Burkeman's full argument is, where he's like, look, you can get hung up on living in the future, and you just need to understand that now is all that you have. But there is a directional element to how all Homo sapiens are wired, and we are target-seeking individuals. However, the achievement of the target, it tends to not be the actual thing that matters. The satisfaction comes in the sequential process of moving toward it, and when you get there, you pick another target. And then you move that in that direction. And very often, by the way, you actually never get to the target. But the motion along the way to that target takes you to a particular intersection point where you go, oh, this is more interesting. And then you go, and you actually never hit that target. And you go, oh, this is more interesting. But if you never were in motion toward those targets, you never would find those intersection points. And by the way, that to me is one of the more fundamental things that I've seen over the 40 years of my career, which is just be in motion at the thing that's ahead of you, that's slightly ahead of your grasp. Now, to this element of, well, what motivates people in terms of feeling both the directional progress, but also, well, what is the intellectual juice here? What is the relational juice that's involved in this? There are going to be people that are more interested in people, and there are going to be people that are more interested in ideas. Now, that's where there's an interesting element here, which is this field note is about the people who are really interested in ideas. And that actually is not everybody. Now, you'd think, well, it should be. Well, and we all, to a degree, but of the things that they test, remember, admired leadership is very behavioral. We're looking for universals, actions that you can take, but it doesn't mean that we don't say that the psychology is not important. We say it's requisite but not sufficient. So if you're talking about a Big Five aspect scale, which is the most studied version, of how we are wired, there is an element of there, called openness. And that is actually tracking a sub-element of intellect and aesthetics. Now, intellect is not what's your IQ. Right? That's not what it is. It's, are you interested in aesthetics? Are you interested in ideas? Like the person that is in this field note. And some people are very high in that characteristic of openness.
And of people who are interested, do you recall from the Big Five, what is generally, how many are aesthetic people and how many are idea people? Is it a 50-50 split on that?
I don't know that I saw a breakdown, but they're actually, what we do know, for example, is that people who are entrepreneurial tend to be very high in openness, and as a general trait. And there are people that are more organizational, right? They're very conscientious. They might not be and you kind of need both. You need the fresh supply of ideas and the effective administration of those ideas, and the yin and yang of that kind of works together. But you're not going to find a person who is wildly high in openness, which I tend to be, and in like statistically on those kind of charts. Now, you don't live your life by what a test result is telling you. You just go out in the world and you go like, well, that kind of is okay. So I don't expect somebody that's not wired like I am to act like I do. The universal here would be to say, I think that you can be in a peer group and be very interested in ideas and get a lot out of it. You might be interested in a peer group and you're kind of quieter, you're not as extroverted, you're not as high in openness, but you're looking to build a few solid relationships and gain some very specific kind of insights. Great, that works for you. What we generally find, though, is locking yourself in a closet and cutting yourself off from all input probably doesn't work that well. And if you're reading field notes and you're involved in leadership, that involves people. So think about being involved with people.
Okay, so what if I am a type of person who recognizes, I've heard the term being coin operated thrown around as a little bit of an insult or aside.
Sure.
But when it comes down to it, maybe I fit into that category. I find myself quite coin operated. So I like relationships, but for whatever reason, I'm just not motivated by them. I understand the importance of them, and I'll try to go for that. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of coin operated. And I haven't reached the level where I feel like I've made enough money. And so me continuing to pursue money is the only thing. And I don't know that I'll ever be satisfied with the amount of money that I take in. So is like, can my motivation be just coin, or in your experience, in my experience, and I don't know what the literature might say about this, the coin operated people eventually reach a level of dissatisfaction. I know that most people in America, like the way that it's been said is like, once you have, I think $50,000, $60,000 in the bank, there's a level of satisfaction where you just feel secure. And there's a lot of people who don't have much ambition past that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really is. So it feels almost like, well, do coin operated people really need this conversation? Or is this more, is it a universal like we're saying it is?
Well, here's what I would like to say. I think that there are people that can be coin operated and are terrible people. I think there can be people that are interested in people and they're also terrible people. They're narcissists, they're psychopaths,
Sure, yeah.
they're manipulators, they're trying to kind of use people. There are people that could be interested in ideas for all the wrong reasons. We would like to say that we should be reaching our potential where our measure of money is probably in service of other people, in the sense of, if I'm solving world-class problems for a large number of people, there's going to be a lot of money attached to that in some way. Now, I might be doing that in terms of some sort of missionary service, or it might not be measured in a paycheck, but the service you're rendering is sort of the yardstick for all of that. And there are people that is enough motivation for them. They just like the process of, can I create a new company? Can I create a new idea? Can I bring people together? Can we test that out? That one didn't work. That's cool. Let's go on to the next thing. Let's try this. Let's connect these people. There are people who take the same approach to relationships, and they tend to be like, oh, hey, this is really cool. Do you know this person over here? Like, they're not only interested in the people, but they're interested in connecting them. And I think even the people that are interested in ideas, and I like to think we all have elements of all three of these. Keep that spigot wide open. You know, we sometimes talk about that in the Admired Leadership Organization in terms of relationships as, what's the faucet set to on your relationships? Do you turn it all the way off after you met that cool person, or is it there's a little bit coming? You're in contact with that person. There's a drip. Well, what does your intellectual spigot look like? And I'm at that juncture, by the way, and not happy about it, where somebody like Arthur Brooks, who I have met and talked with, wrote an entire book saying, oh, you had fluid knowledge when you were younger, and then you get to this point where you have crystallized knowledge, and you're just good for sharing the wisdom, but you're not going to really grasp anything new. And maybe he's right. But I like the idea of challenging that and trying to push past that every single day. And I do find, like, every single day I'm encountering ideas or phrases or insights or stories that are wildly interesting. And I do think that those things do keep you young and fresh. And I think that it's a good way of thinking about, well, how do you see your extended work life? And how do you see your extended curiosity? I'd like to be somebody like, I don't know, Tyler Cowen, the economist, who he will never not be interested in learning something new and traveling. He just put out on his blog today a request. I think he goes to a bunch of different countries a year. He's going to Ghana, and he's like, well, where should I go? Right. He wants people's suggestions. It's a much more interesting way to live in the world.
Yeah. And so the recommendation is find a peer group. There's plenty of professional folks that do this. But an even higher recommendation is maybe start a peer group, right? Be the person
or multiple. Like, you can be in all kinds of different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I've done this with some college friends that we kind of got back through. And it was an experiment that we did that we said, I don't know if this is going to sustain, but let's do it for a year. And it was great conversations for a year. And I miss it. It's probably been about 6 or 7 months since we've done it again. But it's the type of thing that it's like, oh, I don't know why I let it go. I don't know why I just set it at 12 months and then when it ended, I didn't start it back up again. But if you don't have it in your life, it really has become something that you miss, especially if you have been a part of a good one in the past.
Well, in the field note itself, and if you haven't read the field note, which is fine, you can go and take a look at it on Substack. We actually, this is sort of an unusual paragraph in the field note where we actually say, here are some organizations that are known for them. And we list Vistage and Hampton and Next Monday, and Tiger 21 and YPO and Matcha and G100 and Founders Coach and Entrepreneurs Organization. All of these facilitate peer groups. Admired Leadership facilitates peer groups. I've been a part of, we actually are kind of essentially one ourselves. Like, we get together as a firm every 2 months and have kind of these conversations. Getting people together in some kind of dialogue. Sometimes it's a facilitated dialogue. Sometimes it's a mastermind group, whatever that is. The ones that are done correctly and hit a sort of level of consistency. Not that it's closed off and it's only these 7 people, because that can work, but I've seen ones where people come in, they're invited in, or they are part of a certain professional organization, become part of it. It really begins to extrapolate the power over time. Like I've just seen that happen even in things I've been involved with our organization. In fact, it's actually how I got involved in Admired Leadership in the first place 7, 8 years ago, which was my wife and I had a banker who likes to pretend like he likes us, and he came to Pittsburgh, way back, and I was running a big organization, and I was like, doesn't your bank secretly run the world? And I'm kind of struggling over here trying to figure out how to be part of this group that went from me to 300 people. And he said, well, let me connect you with Randall at Admired Leadership. Everybody at the top of our bank has used him. And I was like, okay. And then I got involved. But the purpose of the meeting we were having was he wanted my wife to join one of those organizations that's listed in the field note. Now, she ended up not getting involved in that field note, but that was the whole point, was get involved in this organization and you're going to create conversation. That it didn't happen, and she was not that interested in that, but I got connected to Admired Leadership out of it. You just never know what's going to happen when you initiate conversation. So hopefully the kickstart of this field note is check your spigot, whether it's making sure that your relationship spigot, your idea spigot, a bit of your cash flow spigot, keep them all going. And don't retire. Right. Just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. And for those of us who are still watching right now, there's a couple differences about this particular conversation I just want to highlight before we sign off.
Sure.
It's normally hosted at 3:00 Eastern. Today it was 5:00 Eastern to accommodate for my schedule. So thanks to Scott for that. But if you have the tendency to listen to podcasts, maybe an easier way for you to consume these daily conversations is go over to either Spotify or Apple and subscribe to Lead Better, which is the name of our podcast over there. That might be a better way for you to consume this content if you don't mind listening to a couple old guys talking about leadership on a daily basis.
And we bring in guests. We bring in people from the firm that have different perspectives. And you don't even have to have read the day's field note. We'll probably make it make sense. We don't read it to you point by point. That would be probably pretty boring. Right. But maybe if you've read it, we deepen it. We make it more powerful. Yeah. And that's the whole point. We love talking about this stuff. And for the folks that would join us live or afterwards, we kind of suspect you're a little bit like us.
Right. And so we'll be on tomorrow at 3:00. We don't even know what the field note is about.
No, we don't. I just came in. I didn't glance at it yet, but it's ready for editing here shortly.
But we'll discuss it and we'll talk to you tomorrow on that subject.
All right. Thanks, Mikey.
All right. Bye now.